Now, the actor Colin Firth has been very busy recently, not chasing his latest Oscar, but helping to compile a book. The People Speak tells the story of our nation through the voices of the dissenters, visionaries and ordinary folk who took on the establishment. On Sunday, a star-studded cast assembled at London's Tabernacle to speak those stirring words afresh. Clemency Burton Hill went along.
How do you do, good lady? I am Arthur, King of the Britons. Whose castle is that?
King of the who?
The Britons.
Who are the Britons?
We all are. We are all Britons. And I am your king.
I didn't know we had a king. I thought we was an autonomous collective.
You're all fooling yourself. We're living in a dictatorship, a self-perpetuating autocracy in which working class...
Oh, there you go, bringing class into it again.
Oh, that's what it's all about.
Conceived in America, The People Speak is the brainchild of the late historian Howard Zinn and author Anthony Arnove. By dramatising speeches, letters and songs, the project aimed to bring to life the American story through the voices of its people. Now Anthony Arnove has joined forces with our very own Colin Firth to bring the idea across the pond and turn the spotlight onto British history.
In Britain, we do have a tradition of being rather sceptical of actors who embrace causes and turn into activists. But how important is it to get the likes of Colin Firth involved?
Colin got involved very organically. He saw an American production and was moved by it and really felt that these words needed to be heard in England.
I'm going to be reading a clip from Harold Pinter's Nobel lecture in which he says that actually an engagement with our civil responsibilities is actually mandatory, and it's a responsibility that devolves on us all, and I don't think actors are exempt from that.
How many people do you have to kill before you qualify to be described as a mass murderer and a war criminal? 100,000? More than enough, I would have thought. Therefore, it is just that Bush and Blair be arraigned before the International Criminal Court of Justice.
The scope of the project is vast, covering the movements and issues that shaped, rocked and defined the nation, but from an individual's perspective, reminding us that democracy is built from the bottom up.
When a man says he is free, does he really mean that he is wholly independent in thought and deed, or does he simply mean that he's not doing anything at the moment?
I'm very excited to be part of something which is celebrating the lunatic fringe, or to say in another way, what real people are thinking viscerally and thinking from the heart. And we're at the beginning of a movement trying to get those voices into the mainstream.
In order to liberate ourselves from oppression, we must first know that we are being oppressed. And the great thing about Margaret Thatcher was that she left us in absolutely no doubt.
One of the things that's very striking in the book is that these things for which we take so much for granted now were acts of treason when they were first posited, and often the people that were advocating for them and fighting for them lost their lives.
Absolutely. I mean, the things we now consider as basic rights were once crimes, not terribly long ago. People were tortured for them. You know, suffragettes were tortured.
I say we are rebels because there is no other way open to us of obtaining redress for the grievances, the grave grievances which women have.
You have an incredibly powerful moment in British history, amazing female trailblazer.
Yes, I have Emmeline Pankhurst, and so I'm thrilled and quite honoured actually to be reading the speech. It's quite a empowering moment for her, and I think you just see that ferocity that she had. I mean to be a voter in the land that gave me birth, or that they shall kill me. And my challenge to the government is this: kill me or give me my freedom. I shall force you to make that choice.
Campaigning and outspoken women feature heavily in both the book and the performance.
Virginia Woolf was, of course, one of the women who really did stick her head above the parapet. How important is it to speak her words aloud and for those words to be heard by an audience?
Well, I'm reading from her book, A Room of One's Own, but in fact that was written as a lecture. It was written to be spoken. And when you read it to yourself, it's a very different thing. You have a relationship to her thought and you find yourself talking to her in your head. When you stand up and read it out loud, you're appealing to a collective. It's a rally, it's a cry. It's a very thoughtful and interesting and intelligent cry, but it still becomes a sort of rallying cry for change. At last, Nick Green, the actor-manager, took pity on her. She found herself with child by that gentleman, and so who shall measure the heat and violence of the poet's heart when caught and tangled in a woman's body, killed herself one winter's night, and lies buried at some crossroads where the omnibuses now stop outside the Elephant and Castle. That, more or less, is how the story would run, I think, if a woman in Shakespeare's day had Shakespeare's genius.
It's people who stepped outside of what was considered the acceptable norm of their day to speak on an issue where it was considered unpopular. And this is a book of people who did that, and as a result of that, we have the freedoms we do enjoy today. But there are also freedoms that can be eroded. You know, history doesn't just move forward and then you've won that right and it's secured for all time.
I believe that despite the enormous odds which exist, unflinching, unswerving, fierce intellectual determination as citizens to define the real truth of our lives and our societies is a crucial obligation which devolves upon us all. It is, in fact, mandatory. If such a determination is not embodied in our political vision, we have no hope of restoring what is so nearly lost to us, the dignity of man.